but yeah, as things went along, I was playing more and more. So sometimes it became stressful, but
yeah,
but it was fulfilling. It's one of those things. It's like it's a challenge, but at the end, it's worth it.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. My guest on this episode is saxophonist Leland Baker. In our interview, we cover so much of his career, including his time studying music in New Orleans and at the University of Rhode Island, connecting with Quarterwater in New York City, how he founded his teaching program, Bridging Gaps, and of course, all the jazz projects that he's working on. So I hope you enjoy the episode. If you do, please subscribe wherever you're listening right now, as I'll be releasing some more pieces from our conversation over the next few weeks. And make sure to follow Where the Living Room Used to Be on Instagram and Facebook, to see some photos and show flyers from Leland's time in music.
So I grew up in Pawtucket. Most of my family's from Providence, from Rhode Island. And so music was around. Music was around a lot. I mean, I grew up with my mom. And, a lot of the music I heard in the house was like R&B, classic R&B.
Yeah, okay.
Stuff from the 60s, like Motown.
Nice, yeah.
Many other artists who weren't part of that record label, Motown. Mm-hmm. So a lot of, R&B, soul, and then obviously growing up in the 90s, hip hop and even the R&B during that time. So those are kind of the main constant influences. Yeah. And, for me, I didn't really get into music until high school, until, in terms of playing the saxophone.
Okay. Yeah. What drew you to the saxophone?
Man, I at that point I always thought I was going to be a pilot. I wanted to be a pilot, so once I got into high school, I'm thinking, I'm going to go to college or the Air Force. My uncle was trying to talk me into that. Yeah. But music, like I said, was always a big part of something that connected and felt good every time I heard it. Mm-hmm. And then I heard a cat by the name of Junior Walker. Yeah, he was on the Motown record label. He was a sax player and a vocalist. Yep. And he had a band called it was Junior Walker and the All Stars. And I always thought, if anything, I would try to sing or be a vocalist, which I know I can't sing. So when I heard the sax, it sounded the closest, to the voice. The way he manipulated it. He manipulated it like a vocalist. So. Mm-hmm. Immediately, I went into school the next day and asked my music teacher at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, I mean, we have a small band program." And she's like, "What sax do you want to play?" I'm like, "I don't know. I mean, I'll put it on if you can tell me what he's playing. Then that's what I want to play."
Yeah. And, okay. Like you were that specific. You were like, "I want to play that saxophone."
That sax. Right. At the time, I knew nothing, so I didn't know there were multiple saxophones.
Are there more than one? Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So that was the tenor he was playing, and I started on alto sax, and then eventually I got to tenor saxophone.
Okay.
That was the beginning of that. Yeah.
So you were studying in high school. That's where you first learned how to play the sax, like in band class. Yeah. And where did you go to school?
I went to St. Raphael Academy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Private Catholic school. And I was like, I think I was 14 when I started playing.
Okay.
And the teacher, the music program was a year old.
Oh, all right.
Prior to me getting there. So they didn't really have too much, but taking my interest, and then a few other students after me showed interest in a jazz program. They eventually built one. So it was cool to see that, I was part of the beginnings of that jazz program, and it was, and the music director there at the time was a huge help in the support system. So I definitely give her credit for helping me, push along and and actually pursue music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that kind of brings to mind of like, when did it start to hit home for you? Like, I mean, you were just talking about wanting to be a pilot. Like, how soon was it like, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm like into music now. I'm into playing sax. Was it relatively quickly, or did it take a little while before you started to kind of get that connection to music?
It was pretty quick, honestly. Man. Yeah. It was, once I started, it didn't sound like what I heard Junior Walker play. So
yeah,
I didn't actually work at this, but it was just cool that it was like, oh, I can do this. At least, you know what I mean? I felt like I could, and there was something that just kept me. I had a good support system around me too, my mom and family and stuff. But there was just something that just clicked. You know what I mean? It was just, something that's a little more intangible. It's like, okay, I feel it, and so yeah. Did it come to you somewhat naturally, or was it something that you had that ambition to just keep working towards? Because that was a little bit more of my case with music. Like, I played drums, and I was definitely not good from the first time that I went and sat behind a drum set, but there was something different about it that, I played sports in junior high school or middle school or whatever, and I never really took to it. But when I went behind drums, it's like, I'm going to play this every day, and I'm going to just get better at it. And, It's led me to where I am today. Was that something similar to you, that you just kind of felt something different? You're like, I'm going to really work towards this? Or, yeah, I mean, it was definitely that. It was a little bit of both. I felt like things did kind of, it clicked in many ways, and one being, kind of natural in the sense that, I was, I don't know, I was hearing things and I was able to somewhat, navigate.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And kind of play it on the sax. Obviously, I had so much to get together. But yeah, I think it was just that. I just needed that little bit where I was like, all right, I'm going to work towards this, and eventually, once college came around, and all that whole process, I was like, I'm going to major in music, go to college for music.
Yeah. So you went to Loyola in New Orleans, correct, to study?
Yes.
Was it specifically jazz when you went there, or was it like a music program, or was it like jazz studies?
Yeah, it was jazz studies.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first got there, it was music. I was doing music industry studies. Which is a great program. It was still a track in music, but it was more business oriented. And then the following year, I switched over to jazz studies.
What was your experience like there? I mean, it's obviously such a hub for jazz and just for music. How did that feel for you to be there? And then to, was that like your first time even being, moved away, I would assume, like most college students, and now you're in like the center of jazz in New Orleans and stuff like that. So
right. Yeah, man, it was definitely my first time that far away from home. But I always wanted to get, college was the opportunity for me to get away, from Rhode Island, which I love now. It's where I'm from, it's where my family's from. But I just always wanted to, I'm a person who likes to explore and keep moving. So I'm like, let me go somewhere that's not familiar.
Yeah.
Little did I know, New Orleans, there's so much history there, and it's a mecca for music and obviously jazz, but more importantly, a mecca for Black music, in terms of, the history it has in regards to the African-American population community.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a school in itself. Outside of the school, the city of New Orleans was like, definitely a training ground that I'm fully indebted to and thankful for. Yeah.
And when did you start playing out? Was it like prior to heading down to school there, or I'm assuming when you were down there, you started, playing at the venues that are down there, or just, there's so much that's happening, but when did you start playing, performing live?
Man, when I was here in Rhode Island, I was in Rhode Island Philharmonic School of Music, and the youth combos.
Nice.
So, they would set us up with a couple of gigs a year. So that was some of my first experiences of playing. But yeah, my first paid gig, kind of just as a independent saxophone player. Was around like sophomore year of college. And, that's when I got a taste of, the everything that comes with pursuing music, the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And sometimes for people, they find out that's not what they want to do. It's like, oh, I like music and I'm here playing, but, to get out there and actually hustle and be a part of the scene and deal with some of the things that come with that. It's not for everybody, but luckily I got it early on and I realized it's, I'm in it. This is what I want to do. So,
but yeah, so, I mean, you've got your master's at URI, correct? And music as well. Can you talk about your experience there and like a little bit about the music program at URI, University of Rhode Island?
Yeah. So I finished up in, at Loyola, 2011. I stayed an extra year. And then I wasn't really planning on coming back originally. I always toyed with going to grad school. But I figured I would at least give myself 2 years. New Orleans was even good to me after I graduated. I was playing gigs. I was able to support myself.
Yep.
But I don't know. I just wanted to get it over with. And actually a cat who's from the New England area, George Garzon, very well-known sax player in New England. He teaches at Berkeley. He did a masterclass at Loyola, and I took a lesson with him. And he told me, he was just like, it's not a bad idea these days, especially if you want to do teaching or eventually get into the college system to have that piece of paper, to get you in there. Because it don't even matter how good you play nowadays. You have to, people are looking for the piece of paper, and a cleat. So I thought about it more, and then I decided to go back home and go to URI. URI, it was cool. I mean, the faculty there, I was studying with a guy, Jared Sims, at the time, who was working there. He was great. And, it was a challenging experience, but nevertheless, it was fulfilling. Yeah, for me, I mean, just getting back into the swing of things in terms of school and
okay.
And then in grad school was a lot of research, very research based. So I was trying to balance that and still keep up with the horn.
Okay.
But no, it was cool. It was solid. So I did that.
That's right. Yeah. How much were you playing at that time? Were you like very focused on school then with the amount of research and stuff, or were you still playing live?
I was still able to play live. I was also coming back into the place that I'm from. It started, but also a place I've been away from so long. So I was kind of getting acclimated to the scene here in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Furthermore, New England, trying to go to Boston when I could. Yeah. So it was good because it wasn't something that I had to like immediately get out there and do. I can kind of do it at my own pace, do my schoolwork, but then, hang out at night when I can and go to this jam session. I'll meet this person. And I was living at home. So financially, it was cool to kind of just take the time. But yeah, as things went along, I was playing more and more. So sometimes it became stressful, but but it was fulfilling. It's one of those things. It's like, it's a challenge, but at the end, it's worth it.
Yeah. What were some of the sessions you were hitting? Some of the jazz jams that you were?
They had one in Providence, downtown Providence, called The Roots.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I got introduced to early on when I moved back. Little ones here and there. There was used to go to Murphy's Law in Pawtucket. They had going on. A couple other ones that weren't jazz sessions, more like R&B or blues sessions. But I'll just try to go wherever, man. I mean, obviously Boston, Wally's. Then they had another place. The Lily Pad would do a session sometimes in Cambridge.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So just try to get around wherever.
Cool.
Eventually making my way to, I don't know if I'm jumping gun, but eventually making my way to New York more so. And then, getting more affiliated, acclimated to the scene out there. Yeah.
What was that initial pull to New York? Like, what was, I mean, obviously it's
huge scene down there and stuff like that, but were you connected with a particular musician that said, yo, you should come down here, or have you, like, how did New York come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I figured, obviously you hear about, especially if you're a jazz musician, New York is like the capital, the jazz capital, know. So I said, if I'm going to be back home, everything is, and that's the cool thing about Rhode Island, it's in between, like, these two big cities, New York being the biggest, most prominent. And so, I had some friends down there, particularly one of my best friends, Alex, bass player, Alex Tremblay, gave him a shout out. And he was, he lived down there. So when I went down there, I had a place to stay. He was kind of my, tour guide, showed me around, take me to the spots to hang at, Smalls. He had Fat Cat. He had plenty of other sessions around. 55 Bar did one. I went, go do sometimes. All kinds of ones. Other ones in Brooklyn. I mean, anywhere you go, there's stuff happening.
Yeah.
So I started falling in love with it. At first, I didn't think I would be into New York, like that. But the more people I met, the more sessions I went to, more the musicians I heard. It was like a place I got to frequent more often. And eventually I moved there after I finished grad school. And
okay. And how long were you there for?
I was just there for like a year, a little over a year. But that's how the Quarter Water thing started, and
how did you connect with that group? And can you talk a little bit more about that group, since we're kind of hovering around New York right now?
Right.
Because I mean, it's great stuff. I think that it's really interesting what that band is doing. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, thank you. So I knew the bass player prior. He's from Boston, and we both were in New Orleans at the same time. He was at Tulane, right next door to Loyola.
Okay.
So we had a mutual friend that brought us together eventually. Reconnected when I came back to Rhode Island. And I would jam at his house in Boston. And that was kind of the beginnings. At that point, he was kind of trying to start to form, like, essentially what became Quarter Water. So once I moved to New York, even before I went to New York, we were doing different things. I would come down. And when I moved there, he's like, yo, bro, this is, come to this session. I found this dope MC who goes by the name of Googie, who's our MC of Quarter Water. And then we had other pieces. How it started was not the pieces that it is now, but eventually, we had a guitar player. We went through different pieces and people, but eventually it became what Quarter Water is now. And it's pretty much Gabe's love child, the bass player. He began kind of building this for a while, and I was happy to be a part of it. So that's what it is now. And I'll actually be there this weekend. We're working on some new recordings, some singles, a new music video.
Oh, cool. And you have an EP, correct? Flavors that you did with this group, and then a handful of singles. I mean, I think that what you're doing, it adds a lot of texture to the sound. It definitely blends the two of like hip hop and jazz in a way, and it's really awesome what you guys are doing. So
thank you, man. Yes.
I wish that every time we love and it feels just like this. I wish that every time we do it, it feels just like this. I wish that every time we love and it feels just like this. It feels just like this. It feels. I wish I had a time machine. Wish I had a better rhyming scheme. Wish that I could speak to giants after climbing up a green stalk that grew from a lima bean. I wish that I could spread my wings. I wish that I had 7 limbs. That way I'd hold on to everything and laugh when I hear people wishing for the better things. I wish I spoke fluent Spanish. Dímelo. At least I kinda understand it. Wish that I could throw the deuce like Gambit and get so large I could play pool with the planets.
Like with regard to jazz itself, like when did you start your bands? Or start one of your bands, because I know that you kind of perform at different times and trios and quartets and stuff like that. So like, when did you start your band or start composing your own jazz music?
Yeah. Gosh, trying to see how far I should go back. I get
started playing when I was 14, so like 14.
14, yeah. No, I guess one of the most significant ones was in college. A band that, or at least we call the EP we did what did we call that? Collective Vision. And it was kind of inspired. It was a group of my classmates at the time at Loyola, and we all were inspired by Brian Blade and the Fellowship. It's a band. Brian Blade's a phenomenal jazz drummer. And, he has this band called The Fellowship. And we all were inspired. He actually came to Loyola and did a performance. And speechless. So
made you want to quit school. Be like, that's it. I don't.
Right. It's like, shit. But no, it was so beautiful, and the music was beautiful. It was like almost at first kind of trying to start a Brian Blade and Fellowship cover band, if you will.
Wow, that's ambitious,
Yeah. So we started with like getting some of his arrangements and just playing them. Yeah. But that developed into like original. Eventually, we got into like doing original music.
Cool.
Everybody from the band, contributed, and were really good composers in their own right and players. So that was something of, I guess, my first project in terms of, my first band that actually did something. But then, from there, like I said, I realized the music game is a hustle. So I was always trying to put together something, quartet, a trio, just to play, even if it was just standards, but, as well as trying to form different configurations to play like my own music and arrangements. So, but yeah, it's all started sophomore year, I would say, of college.
Yeah. Okay. And who are some of the folks that inspire your style of jazz? Like who's informing what you're doing? I mean, it's brought up that other artist, but who else are you, kind of pulling some stuff from to create what you do? Yeah,
man, there's so many. I want to say everybody.
Yeah.
But the constant rotation would be, like John Coltrane, Joe Henderson, shouting out all sax players right now, not to be biased, but
we're talking about you. You can be I talk about a lot of drummers all the time.
Yeah. There's so many inspiring musicians, but in terms of like trying to direct my my sound and and the way I approach things, maybe rhythmically or harmonically, compositionally. Train, Joe Henderson, even Wayne Shorter more recently. And then like some guys, current guys like Walter Smith III, I've been really digging. John Ellis was always a favorite of mine. So, cats like that. Even some of the ones who, I should go way back to when like high school. I was listening to more, not necessarily straight ahead jazz, but like what they would call smooth jazz. So like Grover Washington, Kirk Whalum, people like that, Gerald Albright, which is more like instrumental pop or R&B is what they were playing.
Yeah.
But their sound, those particular players in general, I always thought had such a profound sound and impassioned, sound is, that I wanted to achieve. So they were constantly on rotation as, repeat, I should say as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and Kenny Garrett. I can't forget about Kenny Garrett. Sax player.
Yeah. And so who are some of the people that you play with, like in your quartet right now, or who are some of the other folks that kind of circle in and out that are in your crew of, accompanists from bass players and keyboards and drums and stuff like that? Like, who do you usually?
Right. Man, there's some really good young players coming up, and I've lately been rotating a lot of them. Particularly a drummer, Max Meether, who goes to the Hart School, Jackie McLean Institute of Jazz in Hartford, Connecticut. Cool. Another drummer who's new to Providence, who just graduated Juilliard not long ago, Cameron McIntosh. those have been some of the more recent ones. Bass players, Conway Campbell, another young fella who goes to Hart School, great bass player. Matthew Marcus, a dear friend who I like to get on keyboards.
Yeah.
Of course, my friend Alex Tremblay, due to the pandemic, there's a lot of guys I just haven't played with.
Yeah.
Who live in New York or elsewhere. But I have a rotation, but those are some of the players I like to keep in that rotation because, they're creative.
Yeah.
And I think they have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know you do a lot of live shows. Do you have recordings of a lot of have you done a lot of studio work with your material?
Not as much recently.
Okay.
I have some stuff on YouTube. Like a music video I did about a couple of years ago of original tune.
Yeah.
Another one I wrote is this tune I wrote a few months ago this past summer after the incident or tragedy, I should say, with George Floyd. But it was inspired by the many that occurred prior to that. And that's on YouTube. It's called Black Lives Maintain. I'm in the process of trying to write some other stuff, but kind of just been tied up with quarter water stuff, getting back to playing in general. So I haven't been doing too much writing. And then also this new project with a tap dancer called Roots and Rhythm. Yeah,
I'd love to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that started in through a grant I applied for Brown University. It was probably it might have been in April or May. But like many different organizations, there were a lot of artist grants, artist relief funds being established, due to COVID, we all lost our work like that. And so Brown put out this one where it was a project, like you had to apply and you had to have a project in mind that they would support and fund and also basically just give you money, as a award. And so anyhow, I applied to that. I think there were 10 of us who were chosen. And this cat, Orlando Hernandez, was one of the recipients, like myself. And we met over Zoom. The cohort met through Zoom, and we met everybody. And there were a few people out of that cohort I was hoping and wanting to do a collaboration with. I thought would be cool and unique. But me and Orlando connected after that through email and was just like, bro, I like your stuff, what you're doing. I like where you're coming from. And so we connected that way. Long story short, eventually met in person and then began to start putting things together, different ideas and concepts of how we can make something unique and cool, out of a tap dancer and a saxophone player. Collaboration. And I mean, the bassist too he's coming from an art form that is of African disparate tradition and culture. And so am I as a jazz player. And we're both trying to draw and hone in on representing that ethnic group, as a kind of a necessary part of the development of the Americas, and he's of Puerto Rican descent. So some things he's done in the past was try to shed light on indigenous and African presence in Puerto Rico, and so we had so many commonalities with our work and our concepts that it was like, okay, we definitely have to try to do something. And so it's been a great learning experience. It's been fun. He's a talented and very impassioned cat. So things have come together in a very unique and, inspiring way. Like it's just something I want to keep doing and building. So we've been doing different things.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a really interesting use of rhythm and sound and just everything that, but yeah, I mean, how was that process? Is it an improvised, is it improvisational pieces? Are you connecting on certain elements? And I'd love to just hear a little bit more about how you're combining that, and then even just a little bit more about, I mean, it sounds like it's something that this is, a mechanism for highlighting this important story. But like, how else are you getting that piece of the message out to people from these performances?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been like both. A lot of like just improvising, coming together and seeing what works. He may come with an idea, like a rhythm. He's a tap dancer, so he'll tap it out. And eventually I may hear some kind of, melodic motive.
Yeah.
And we kind of just expand. It's like, it's so organic in the moment that sometimes, we get taken away and like, oh, wait, this is a rehearsal. Like we just go, and it's, so now we've been recording our rehearsals because I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, what is that we did?
Yeah.
So a lot of that is very organic and in the moment. It's
cool.
But then we get together and just do some tunes. Like, I mean, there's a long history with tap dance and jazz, going back to the 30s and 40s and 50s. So there's repertoire that he knows and that we both know, and so we'll just do that and trying to hone in and draw back to the tradition of these art forms. But yeah, man, I mean, for one instance is through Brown University, we got to do a thing called Remaking the Real that was supported through the Brown Arts Initiative. And it would have been on Brown University's campus, but obviously with COVID, we couldn't be on campus. So we did it all virtual. It's now on YouTube. It's also in their archives on at the Brown University website. And it's called, like I said, Remaking the Real, Pass Me Not is the name of the project.
Okay.
And that's one of our first major productions, if you would say, where, people can get the gist of kind of where we're coming from and where we're trying to go conceptually.
Yeah.
It's part of it's a performance, part of it's an interview, like we're doing a discussion. And yeah, I thought it came out pretty hip. So
that's right. Yeah.
So we just been doing different things like that, man. Just trying to develop projects, and then, find people that will fund them and support them. And we go from there.
With regard to other shows, like what are some of the major places that you played in Rhode Island? I know that you just recently did a live stream with your group, the quartets at the Parlor, which was phenomenal. And again, I'd heard your name, but seeing you that night, it was fantastic. So, and that's through a computer, so I'm assuming you're like, you should actually see me, not. But,
No, I'm appreciative of any ears or eyes I get these days.
Yeah, but what the Parlor has done to upgrade their system and have their live stream, it's they're doing a great job with that. But yeah, can you just shout out some other places that you typically play with some of the jazz stuff, or where can people see jazz, like pre-pandemic, but where can people see jazz? Where can people see you play,
Yep, definitely. Yeah, the Parlor, like you said, is one that I'm happy for them that they've come back, and they're such an important part of the music scene here in Rhode Island. But yeah, let's see. Cortland Club, pre-pandemic, but also, as I just mentioned earlier, they're opening their doors back up. And that place is it's kind of like being in a New York, jazz club or something underground. You know what I mean? Like,
where's that located? I haven't.
It's right on Cortland Street, right off of Broadway, like West End, Federal Hill area.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Providence. It's right in a very residential neighborhood. It kind of looks like an apartment. So,
like a speakeasy type thing, or
exactly.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It was like an old bakery back in the day or something.
Nice.
And he made it into a really hip place. So, that place is definitely hip and a vibe. The Ale House I play at every month. It's a cigar lounge.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's the third Friday of every month.
Okay.
But that, they do music every weekend. A place that's fairly new is the George. I haven't played there yet, but I know they're kind of like a piano bar / restaurant. So they have music going on, I think, every weekend and throughout the week. Kind of like a piano, just piano, solo piano or duos. But yeah, man, a lot of places, I think, because of what we went through, especially as it gets warmer, are going to be doing music more than we probably seen in the past. So I've gotten so many inquiries, from just different bars, even doing stuff outside, obviously. The Eddie was a place, a cocktail bar that I was doing stuff this past summer.
Cool.
Outside. So yeah, there's stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
But one thing I'd love to hear a little bit more about, as I was, getting ready for this, and you talked about Roots, and obviously that place changed quite a bit, but you did their Jazz Revelation series at Aurora for a while. What was that show? Or what was happening with that?
That was really cool. That was something special that was put together by Peter and Marina, and they moved here, I think, not quite sure, but 5 or so years ago from Missouri. Retired, and they were just jazz lovers, jazz enthusiasts who wanted to, help out in any way they could with the scene. So they got a grant and kind of put that series together. So yeah, I've done it a few times. It was cool because you was able to really put something together, a concept, a project, a theme, and go in there, perform for people who brought tickets who brought tickets to see it. So and it gave an outlet and a voice to many artists within the area and community. It wasn't just sometimes you do, as you may know as a musician, you do gigs, or you got to do gigs to eat. And so you don't always get to do, maybe gigs that are the most fulfilling to you, musically or creatively.
Yep.
But this was a series that fed off of that. That's what they were going for. Like, go there.
It was more open format of like just come and play. Like if it's under the jazz umbrella, if you want to do some, more avant-garde stuff, go for it. If you want to do, some, it's just we're looking to let you explore. That's great. Yeah.
So that was a cool thing going on at that time.
Yeah. Well, I know you also teach, and so I'd love to hear a little bit more about the lessons that you offer, and let you kind of let anyone that's listening know of how to hit you up for that. And I'm assuming you're still kind of staying busy with that, as some of the other people I know are maybe doing some stuff over Zoom or whatever else. But you've got that piece of paper. It sounds like you're using it, a little bit.
Yeah. Still trying to use it. Yeah.
But yeah, can you talk about the lessons that you offer and what you're looking to kind of teach? Is it specifically jazz that you're looking to teach people, or are you teaching more of a broad instruction on the saxophone or?
Yeah. That's a good question. Thinking of so many different Well, it's been some of both. Like for instance, with the Rhode Island Philharmonic, I teach through them. So sometimes you get students who beginners, intermediate level, want to learn classical, just want to learn marching band music. Learn jazz, want to learn rock. So you have to try to accommodate their skills and their needs. But me as like a private teacher of my own, I particularly like to hone in on students who are trying to learn or at least dabble with jazz or popular music, who really want to get a solid foundation on the saxophone in terms of its, I say the physics of the saxophone, learning the instrument. So, I go wherever. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I mean, honestly, I like doing like master classes. I've done a good amount of those in the last few years. Going to middle schools, high schools, colleges, and just kind of giving a lecture or a program on different, because I really want to focus in on students who are inspired and, even if they don't want to pursue such, or they find out they don't want to pursue such as a career, students who are looking to get something out of it and really invest their time, at least in that moment. So, but I offer a half hour and hourly lessons. I've done some Zoom, obviously with these times, Zoom. In person is still an option though. I'll be fully vaccinated in a couple of weeks, but cool. And people can find out more information on my website too about private lessons.
That's lelandbaker.com, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Cool.
Thanks.
But I mean, a big thing that I wanted to talk about is that you are the founder of Bridging Gaps, which is, a great program that, circles around music and education and everything like that. So, I'd love for you to talk about the beginnings of that program, or and what you're looking to achieve with it, and how people can engage and connect with it.
Definitely, yeah. Wow, I haven't thought about the beginnings in a while, but it actually started in New York. I was playing in the subway and busking, and this guy was coming around taking pictures, and afterwards, complimented us playing with a friend and gave me his card and was like, this is what I like to do on the side, but I'm also the director of Arts by the People. And it's a nonprofit organization based in New Jersey. And it was a while, it was months before I even hit him up. It's just one of those things you kind of throw to the side and move along. And I found it, eventually one day, and I said, oh man, let me check the website out. And I checked the website out, and it was really hip because what he was doing was getting artists of different mediums and getting them to do different programs, different maybe master classes, performances that were educationally, that had an educational base. You know what I mean? So I started thinking about like, how can I, and part trying to hustle and figure out like I need to try to get as much work as I can in New York City. So what could I put together that is, worth it, that somebody could, maybe dig. And I just started thinking like, you might have gotten this too, if you perform, you say you have a gig or something and you perform and, you have somebody who comes up who compliments you or likes what you did. And then they start asking these questions and it's like, I don't think about this stuff. To me, it's like simple. Like, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, but for me, I'm like, okay, how can I explain, at least with jazz and improvisation, it to the lay person, to the person who's not a musician, who's not let alone jazz musician, who's not a musician, maybe a jazz listener, but not a historian or enthusiast. How can we break it down without offending or watering down the music and the process, without watering down the creative spirit of jazz and, its organic spirit. And that was kind of the start, like bridging gaps. How can I bridge that gap between the audience and the musicians on stage, you know? Mm-hmm. And so anyhow, I introduced this concept to Paul, was the guy's name. And he was like, yeah, you know, put this, that, and together for me and blah, 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 blah. So I ended up tweaking things, putting the concept together, trying to make it more definitive. And long story short, I did some of my first bridging gap programs and master classes or / lectures with Arts by the People.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but when I came to Rhode Island, I kind of like, you know, pulled it apart and, you know, refigured it, because now I'm like trying to get education grants, say through RISCA. So now it's about, well, how about we bridge the gap between artists, you know, like somebody of different mediums. Like, for instance, what I'm doing with Orlando, a tap dancer and a jazz musician.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
How does one perceive improvisation? How does improvisation act or is taken into context within this medium versus that medium? You know, different things, and it just kept snowballing. It's like, okay, now let's do bridging gaps between young artists or inspiring musicians, and in the process of creativity and expression through jazz.
Yeah.
Or something else. You know?
So is it usually through these lessons or lectures that you accomplish that, or like, and where do these lessons typically take place? Are you bringing them into schools, or are you like, how are you going about that?
Yeah. So 2 years ago now, I got a grant from RISCA to do that. I did Bridging Gaps series at TAPA, Trinity Academy of Performing Arts.
Okay.
Yeah, Arts High School, downtown Providence. And I was there for a year. I got 2 separate grants, so I was able to be there for a whole year. And others I've done in like CCRI, Brown University, just like classes.
Okay.
Just like one master class or a lecture. Cranston East, you know, different high schools around the state. But TAPA, we was able to like focus on kind of bridging that gap with kids who maybe are, you know, aspiring artists, musicians, but bridging that gap with the them not having the resources or the access to maybe pull in these different concepts, these different, you know, creative ways to go about achieving their artistic goal and vision. You know, like, for instance, like we took them to New York. We took them to Jazz at Lincoln Center, where they received a clinic, a masterclass from the Lincoln Jazz, you know, Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra.
Okay.
At least some of the members within the orchestra. So that was something new for the kids. It blew their mind. Like, some of the stuff that I like, you know, some of the mainstream music I'm listening to today, you know, whether it's hip hop or R&B, I'm now seeing like references from like jazz. I'm now, you know, jazz is not just like this old music that some 90-year-old man on the corner plays or something. You know, these the concept of what it is very you know, commercial, I guess, societal. So kind of bridge that gap and draw them to realize the parallels with the music they listen to, are inspired by in jazz, as kind of like the DNA of all American music, essentially, you know. Or I would say the blues is the DNA of American music, but jazz being a sponge, you know, it soaked that up and it gave off to where we have all these different genres of music that kind of reference jazz, you know, to today. Today, I should say. I'm just trying to give off what I know and feel as of now. And that's the cool thing too. It gets it's open. It's not, you know, I'm not trying to go by a book. This person exists because this person exists, and this is, you know, like, right. Just like, this is who did jazz. This is where it's like, kind of, you know, I want discussion and open-mindedness and all that. So that's what that kind of project offers. Just trying to create understanding between whatever it is, you know.
Well, that's awesome. But yeah, so yeah, Leland, I just have one more question for you. What would you say is your greatest musical accomplishment up to this point, with everything that you've done from, performance and education and everything like that? Is there, something that kind of stands out to you?
As of now, just being able to survive and keep moving forward, with my passion and, what was originally, it still is, still all part of the same dream, but just kind of thinking like, going back to that 14-year-old self, and then looking at now where I'm at, it's like, I'm still not where I want to be, but I've come so far. And so I'm just thankful for that. So that in itself is a accomplishment. But yeah, there's just been some people I've met along the way who have become great friends, who have became mentors, great performances I was able to see or be a part of. So yeah, I'm thankful for all of it, man.
Yeah. Well, that's big. I mean, if you're able to do this, it was always a goal of mine, and just being able to go and do it, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, at least for me, shoot for the stars, but like, I want to be on TV. I want, but getting to do it, getting to play live and tour and sell records and stuff like that. And with what you're doing, I mean, you're making an impact. You're out there just doing the work, and it's not going unnoticed. Like I see that stuff, at least for me. I can see how much you're out there, and I love what you're doing, the creativity that you bring to this, and you're doing a great job of, just keeping jazz alive in Rhode Island in a sense as well too. With your generation of it, I think this is key because there's a big lineage of jazz in Rhode Island from places like Bovie's and what John Allmark's doing and stuff like that. And it's just it's great to see what you're doing and how you're keeping that stuff alive. So
thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, Leland, thanks so much for your time. It was awesome to get to learn a little bit more about you and all the different avenues that you go down with regard to music, man. So it's really cool.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, thank you for having me, man.